Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Comic Boys show. This is a bit of a different scenario because it's just myself and Musa, and Khalil isn't here. He's not going to be joining us, unfortunately. But you guys know me. I'm Alon. I'm one of the co-hosts, and today I'm joined by my other co-host and a good friend of mine. Go introduce yourself, buddy.
Yeah, my name is Musa. I believe I've been on this podcast about last week discussing Killers of the Flower Moon, and it's a pleasure being back on for
For
today's
sure.
podcast.
For sure. So today we don't have much on our plate. We have just two things on our plate that we're gonna discuss. So I'm not gonna say anymore. I'm just gonna get into it. So movie review. About a week ago, close to a week ago, Musa, another friend, and myself, we watched Napoleon, starring Joaquin Phoenix. It's the latest installment of Ridley Scott and his filmography. As you guys know, Ridley Scott's big time director. You know, he makes some great movies. So this film was about Napoleon Bonaparte, the French general who led what was known as the Napoleonic Wars, and it was just a look at his life behind the scenes, him on the battlefield, um, politics, history. It just all those things. So I'm gonna hand it off to you, Musa. What did you think of Napoleon? I know it's a broad question, but I'm gonna hand
Ooh.
it off to you. We'll get into the specifics, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, one thing that just based on a lot of reviews that came out, even the week before its release, the one thing that a lot of people emphasized that was like high quality for the film was how it looked visually. And I
Mhm.
know that we both watched it on that day, and we both had the same opinion that it looks beautiful. And I think a lot has to do with it on how it depicts the battle sequences. I know that there's three distinct battle sequences that they showcase. One, I believe, the first one is Toulon, the second one is Austerlitz, and the third one being Waterloo.
Mhm.
And what I love about these battle sequences, besides the fact that it looks great and all the small little intricacies regarding nations, their tensions, the tactics, the calamities that they have to go through because of the geniusness of Napoleon's tactics, was how patient it was in depicting it. It wasn't overblown. It wasn't too quick. It allowed you to really digest everything that is going on, and really did a really good job in making you being in that scenario in that point in time, which I thought to be really cool. Um, Besides that, it kind of goes downhill for me personally. This First of all, the way that they depict Napoleon, and for those who are interested in watching it, who haven't gotten the chance, it isn't very historically accurate. Yes, it showcases Toulon, Austerlitz, and Waterloo, and a couple of small little subtleties regarding the politics that was transpiring during Napoleon's time in France, and him being the emperor of France, and the consequences that came as a result of him being the emperor, and so forth. Those things, yes, they're accurate to an extent, but everything else is left for interpretation. And the one thing that I personally have a problem with, just in really Scott in general, ever since he's made Gladiator, is he feels a need that he needs to change history. When history, it's the history of the material that he's working with is so good as it is, and it's so intriguing. But it's not even those elements, the additional elements that he implements within his films, especially if he's talking about historical films, like Exodus being one, Robin Hood, it being a fable. There's still a level of accuracy within it. I find that his stylistic choices sort of deteriorates the overall quality of the narrative that he's presenting. And I think it's the same thing for Napoleon. Yes, all of the things that he's showcasing regarding its production design, what the outfits that he's wearing, and the people that he's depicting that were close to him, people who were against him, no issues because those things actually happened, and the people that were a part of his, you can say, his movement, the real people. But the issue that I have is that he's from each and every sequence and event that he's showcasing, it sort of feels like a documentary that we share. Like we have the Austerlitz, we have Toulon, we have this, but there's no emotional resonance to these events that are happening. Sure, it looks great. Sure, it's a spectacle, but you don't really gain a connectivity of Napoleon. And a lot of people are going after Joaquin Phoenix for reasons I don't know why. And I know that him and Ridley Scott worked very closely in trying to create this character in regards to their own vision. But I think the film falls in its writing. I think the writing is it's not strong, and it doesn't. Again, it doesn't provide any emotional resonance of the narrative. Like I came out of this film not having any level of connectivity of Napoleon, or even surprised of the things that I've learned about Napoleon. And sure, I know small stuff about the individual. Sure, I don't know like in comparison to other historians and people who just casually discover about Napoleon. But I don't. I came out of it thinking, okay, sure, like he did this, he did that. But again, I know I'm going on a tangent, but it's not even those things. They depict them as a clown, and this is the one thing that I find to be very interesting. And I know the French. Oh my god, I can't imagine the French watching this film. That's going to be funny. But it is very centered around the British lens, and we both know that the British they're not very fond of Napoleon, and I think and it's more so this it's not this sure it could be distaste of the individual himself because he was a bit crazy but it, he succeeded against them almost 99% of the time, so I think it's a sheer level of jealousy if anything. I know that might be controversial what I'm saying, but I agree with it, that's fine, no problem. But I don't know, because the film centers around Josephine and Napoleon. Like that is the center of the film. And if you watch it and you actually see the things, see these events and how they play out, you would not know that it is about those two. And I think a large part of it has to do with the writing. Like Josephine was heavily underutilized, and that upsetted me so much because she's such an interesting character. And yes, she's manipulative. Yes, her intelligence, even to an extent, exceeds Napoleon's. And those narratives for me, like those themes, those thematic elements, I'm like, that's awesome. Why don't you communicate about that? Why don't you present it? Because I thought that the best elements of the film, with the exception of the battle sequences, were the tit for tats that both Napoleon and Josephine were going through. And there is similarities between Josephine's character and Killers of the Flower Moon with Lily Gladstone's character because sure they're not communicating a great deal in the film, but there's the sheer emotion that they're displaying speaks louder than words. I know that we discussed about that for last week's podcast, but for Josephine, it's like a dollar store version of Killers of that character of Lily Gladstone and Killers of the Flower Moon, which upsetted me. But I know I mentioned a decent bit. What did you think of the film?
mean, like when I was heading on home after we watched it, I categorize it like this. In terms of a Ridley Scott film, because like Ridley Scott likes making these kind of big visualized kind of movies. Like he obviously did the first Blade Runner. He did Alien Covenant. He did The Martian, Exodus. So he likes these kind of big visualized kind of films. So in terms of a Ridley Scott film and what that is, it was solid. It was a good Ridley Scott film, and that's not a knock on anyone. It's just a good Ridley Scott film. In terms of film itself, yeah, it was lacking. It was lacking some fundamental aspects of a film. Like you said, I agree. I think that you mentioned this after we watched it. A lot of Napoleon's sanity comes from his relationship with Josephine, and she was very underutilized throughout the film. Um, like obviously, it felt like the marriage that they had because there was the part where they got a divorce. So from that point where they get married up until they get divorced, it there wasn't much substance generated between the two, and there wasn't enough of a emotional connection for the audience to feel between Napoleon and Josephine. Um, I know in the 4 hour cut that's coming out on Apple, they're gonna showcase a lot more of Josephine. So I'm hoping that that'll fill in a little bit of the gaps and pieces that we were hoping to see in the theatrical release. The battle scenes, they were obviously it's come on, it's Ridley Scott. Like this guy obviously knows how to create these sequences. Um and the one in Toulon, obviously it was dark. I think it was they attacked in the night, but it was impressive how they still managed to showcase so much with all the lighting around. Austerlitz was very excellently choreographed. Um with the positioning of the cannons and artillery, where the Austrian and Prussian soldiers are coming from, and where the French soldiers are at, and just Napoleon's precision. Because that's how Napoleon was. He was apparently a very calculated, precise, specific, little itty bitty information kind of individual. And and then the final one was Napoleon at Waterloo, which you might know this by the famous ABBA song "At Waterloo, Napoleon did surrender." So that was the last scene, and that was also very well choreographed. So going into it, yeah, I was expecting like excellent battle scenes, considering it was Ridley Scott. Mentioning the historical perspective, yeah, there was a lot of parts of this that were just very inaccurate. And as someone who I spent a lot of my second year university, like in my history classes, mostly reviewing the Napoleonic Wars. Um, so one of the ones that intrigued me the most was, I think it was in the title cards when it was describing like the revolution in France. People are driven by misery to revolution, and then it said a young, humble Corsican gunnery officer named Napoleon Bonaparte. First of all, he wasn't very humble. His father was an aristocrat, so he came from a very wealthy background. Second was when Napoleon fired at the pyramids in Egypt. I don't recall that ever happening. I think that was just something Ridley Scott threw in there just for the sake of it happening. I'd say like 40 minutes of what happened in the film are real actual events, and then the other 1 hour 40, however much, it was just Ridley Scott for God knows why doing what he wants. um I didn't think it was bad. I didn't hate the film. I mean, I've seen a lot of very harsh criticism for it, but I didn't hate it. I thought it was all right. Like I thought it was pretty good. Obviously, there was a lot of flaws. Like the story sometimes just jumped from place to place to place to place to place to place, and it was just a little hard for me to keep up with it. But other than that, I mean, I can't lie. There were some scenes where Joaquin Phoenix was delivering his lines, and he was good. It was that one part I remember when he was speaking to a maid from his house, and he's asking like, did my wife cheat on me? And he like breaks the glass and starts like, he Joaquin Phoenix for sure gave a very great performance for this film, and I think that helped prop it up a little bit, considering how some a lot of aspects of the film was weak. However, I thought it was solid. I There were a lot of flaws to it, but I thought it was solid. Um, One other thing that I wanted to ask you about the film, it's I know we discussed this in the past, the soundtrack of the film. What in a film like this where both of us had our criticisms of it, what did you think of the soundtrack? Like, how do you think that added that level of substance to the film itself?
No, that's a good question. I got the opportunity to listen to a couple of compositions within the soundtrack. Like I didn't fortunately get to listen to the entire soundtrack itself, but yeah, I thought it was good. It's it isn't it isn't reinventing the wheel. It's there's very high highs and the sounds are very low lows, and like there's a good level of consistency. But there's a couple of compositions that are representative of older films during that time period, which I've thought to be interesting. Like I swear, there's one cut that sounds exactly like Pride and Prejudice. Like, and I only know that film because I watched it with my mother one day, and like, and I just thought about it, like in the theater, like, damn, that sounds exactly the same. So these small little cues that like, it's cool. I don't think it's great. I think it does its job. It does its job really well. But the nooks and crannies of that film is the sound editing, and I thought the sound editing was good. Like, I think I don't know. It's an interesting film because I get stuck in a rock and a hard place because there are a lot of really there's some really cool elements of the film, but it just gets trumped down to its negatives, and like the film is funny. Like there's elements of it is surprisingly funny, and I didn't expect that to be the case whatsoever. And like I know there was one line that Napoleon, I think it was after he got married, when he got after he got married that same day, I believe, or the next day with Josephine, and they were having dinner, and he said, "I wanted to have a child. Like it's been 3 years or however many years. I want to have a child. Like I want to have a child right now." Like, and obviously, anybody in that situation would be like baffled, like, "What the heck is this individual talking about?" When she was struggling to have kids anyways, and they never talk about that. No, that's not necessary to begin with. But she said, "I can't." And then they go back and forth, and he's ripping her apart. And this is out of nowhere, literally out of nowhere. And he uses an analogy like destiny has brought me to this lamb shop. Like, and it's funny. Like, it's is it required? Absolutely not. But there's a little bit of lightness to it, and I think that's a bit justified because of how serious the events are and how serious that individual's life is. But the one thing that bothers me the most is just his age. Joaquin Phoenix, I don't know how old he is. I think he's in his 40s, mid 40s, or he's in his 50s. He's somewhere around that period of age. Napoleon was young. He was young. He wasn't in his fort. By the time that Napoleon passed away was the age that Joaquin Phoenix is right now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And I was waiting when they were depicting his history when he just started as a humble soldier and then started going up the ranks from there, that I would see different versions of him. But it was just Joaquin Phoenix throughout. And it is obviously not his fault. Like it isn't to an extent because he accepted the role, but I just find that really Scott heavily delves into melodrama and it becomes his detriment. And an example being House of Gucci. Like if you actually read the story of, I believe her name is Patricia Reggiani. I believe that's her name. I'm not mistaken. But it's a very fascinating story. A story that deserves to be on the big screen. Like it's a really, really intriguing story. It's crazy. It's screwed up, but it's a really cool story. And having seen a good amount of that film, like really, you're given so much substance and you still manage to do additional changes that make no difference whatsoever. So I think maybe it's age. I don't like saying that, but I've been watching a couple of interviews from Ridley Scott, and a lot of the big talking points are the historical aspects of the film, and rightfully so. Like, we're talking about one of the most important figures in human history, especially during that period of time, and in the context of war. But and he's saying like, okay, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Who cares? Use explicitives. I'm not using explicitives here, but basically said to F off. Like, who cares? Who cares about your opinion? And I'm thinking a director that does not care about what we think to an extent. I'm like, why should I care about you? Why should I go out of my way to watch this film? Sure, I went out of my way to watch it because it's the first Ridley Scott film that I've ever got to see in theaters. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. And it's also about Napoleon, which is a really fascinating individual, regardless of what people may think of his personal life. Like the guy's a genius. Like nations still study his war tactics to this day, which is a testament of how incredibly intelligent that he was. And this film makes him look like a clown. And people may disagree with me on this, and I understand. I understand both perspectives, but it's made by Anglo-Saxons. You can see it. It's made purely on a British perspective, and it bothered me because the people that they showed that have sort of a French accent sounded British. So I'm like, if we're gonna make a film like that, you should make it clear that A, it's not historically accurate. B, there's some accuracy, but don't expect it to be a history lesson. When in reality, the film shows that as a history lesson, but there's no real history to it. Because when, like you mentioned, when he blew up the pyramids, this was recent, by the way, and I'm paraphrasing this. I don't know what Ridley Scott said exactly. He said that period of time was going to take too long to film, and the film was already long as it is. Excuse me. So we'll just do that the past time. Just to transition quickly. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You're kidding me. I can't even imagine what the real cut was for this film. Because he says it's 4 hours. God help me, it could have been 6. And this is the thing, what I mean. Like there's a lot of empty holes in the film, and it still feels so long. Coming from watching Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon, which are 3 hours plus, by the way, they feel like they're 2 hours, if that, which is a testament of how well paced the film of those films are. And who cares? Like the directors are excellent at what they do, but the pacing on the film is great, and it also respects its audience, and it doesn't meander. That film meanders, Napoleon, and it makes. And I know at the end credits it showcases the prolific events that he took part in and the amount of people that passed away as a result of that. I came out of that reading that epilogue, you can say, like, this guy's evil. I'm not here to bypass the things that he's done, whether he was a womanizer and whether he was disrespectful to his peers. I don't know. I wasn't there. Sure, the pieces of history that we've seen thus far showcase those elements to an extent. But if you're heavily emphasizing those things without really getting to the nitty and gritty of who he is as an individual, what he's remembered as being his war tactics, like if you actually see the sequences of the war tactics, there aren't many sequences. They're just battles. Like, sure, they showcase him having a large map and him pivoting here and there and him explaining it. And that's cool. It's really cool because I want to see what made those events so prolific in the first place and sort of his psyche that went with it and his adaptability within the situation. Because I know Austerlitz, like if you actually see the context of that battle and the intelligence behind it, it is insane. Insane. Coming from a period of time where there's nowhere near, not even next to zero of the amount of technology that we have now, that he was able to utilize natural resources to his benefit is insane. And I just find that even that sequence, it just showcases it cool. Yeah, okay, he did some good stuff. But yeah, let's really show the real stuff that who he really is. I'm like, and that's sort of, it's not fair. I personally think it's not fair. But I don't think it's bad. I think it's been getting a lot of harsh criticism, and I can understand why. But I think it's okay. It depends. If you're someone that's a big history buff, proceed with caution because it's not as historically accurate as it can be and as it should be. But if you want to watch a film that has spectacle, a film that has good acting overall, because I thought Joaquin Phoenix did a good job. I don't think he did a great job. He did a good job. I think it's worth it. Like Vanessa Kirby's the standout of this film. Like regardless of how minimal she's in it, like she's great in it. But let's see what the 4 hour cut is. Like me coming out of this film, am I intrigued enough to watch a 4 hour cut? No, not really. Because if it's like that and it's an extra 1.5 hours of bad, like I came out of the theater with my head hurting. And there's very few films that did that. Like Babylon was one. Because there's just so much that's going on in that film. I like that film a lot. I know that's very controversial. That was one of my favorite films of the year. That film, and there was another film that came out that was hurt my head a decent bit. That was Black Widow, imagine. But just it's I don't know. I'm happy that we're getting films like this. That films are getting the budget to make spectacle films because you don't see it very often. And sure, someone could say, "Well, this year was all about that." I'm like, 100%. But when have we gotten something that is similar to that in the past 5 or 6 years? That is not Marvel. That is not an Avengers affiliated. Not many. And I think it's a great step, but I also think that there's a huge writing crisis within Hollywood. That a lot of the films that have been coming out, and I think we can even transition within Disney. Like Disney's been struggling, man. Like they've been the past like 5 or 6 films that they've released have done incredibly poorly in the box office. I know Wish recently came out, an animated feature from Pixar. Imagine Pixar losing money when there was a point in time when they were actually saving the company and sort of became the face of animation. $200 million budget, less than 50 million. It's disgusting. And I think a lot of people are fingerprinting because people aren't interested in that stuff or they're not keeping up with the times. It has nothing to do with that and everything to do with quality. Because you see a film like Oppenheimer, as someone that is even incredibly more controversial than Napoleon, imagine, he made $1 billion plus. It's almost $1 billion plus dollars. So what does that tell you? Quality. People are willing to go out of the way and watch a film if the quality is really high. And sure, Barbie had a big part to do with it, and both films were battling through it, and that makes a big impact. But same thing for Barbie. Like, I think the film's fine. Like, it's okay. Like, I don't think it's anything special, but the look and the actual spectacle and the craftsmanship is great. I can't deny that, and the performances are solid all around. So, what do you think? What do you think's been going on with Marvel? Because I know Marvel, it's getting a lot of attention, especially I know it's affiliated with Disney, and they've been having big issues regarding obtaining heavy budgets and having a lot of rewrites and not really having a concise plan and reaping the consequences because of that. So what do you think?
I think the biggest issue right now for Marvel is the fact that the people who run that organization believe in quantity over quality. They
100%.
believe more in pushing out as many films and TV shows as possible, which can have a bad effect because sometimes it can lead audiences off track. Oh, I have to watch this. Oh, I have to watch this. So I'm getting lost in all this. And not only that, that huge quantity of TV shows and films they put out, they turn out to be horrible. Like there's no way to sugarcoat it. They just turn out to be atrocious. The most recent one was obviously Captain Marvel, which caught a lot of slack from fans and critics. And if I'm not mistaken, if I'm looking at the numbers, Napoleon actually made more money in its first weekend than Captain Marvel did. Napoleon made $73 million in its opening weekend.
Which is
Captain
really
Marvel
good.
only it's very good.
Really
It's a
good.
very good number. And then Captain Marvel just made I think 43 million. So I think I'm really hoping that this is the start where people moviegoers start to alter their minds and they're like, you know what? These superhero movies that are coming out, they're all so copy and paste. It's all
Mm.
just the same big CGI fights and just pointless, brainless, brain dead stories. And like I felt like Napoleon, like you and I agree, it had a lot of flaws, but it was solid overall. Like that's at least intriguing because it's like
Of course.
a film about one of the most important and like most interesting historical figures of all time, and a big time military genius. Like despite the fact that he did a lot of questionable things, he was a hella smart dude when it came to the battlefield. Even Oppenheimer, that movie made almost $1 billion. So I'm really hoping this is a start of film goers kind of being like seeing these films like Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon and Napoleon, these films that are that take certain pieces of history and discuss it, or even not even that, just regular indie films. I know A24 is doing great right now at the films that they're making. They're a thriving company, and it's great to see. I mean, I've got to see some of their films, especially what was that one? It was called X, I think.
Oh, with what's it called? I think it's from Ty West, right?
Yeah, I
With
think so. I
yeah.
think so. A24 lately has been they've been going crazy. Like they've had some really good movies. Yeah, X. It was X and Pearl. Both came out on in the same year. So the fact that these movies that are not necessarily tied to big franchises. I mean, there are some films that are tied to somewhat big franchises that have been making great films that have been making good money, but that's because they're good films. But the fact that like now, like I hope this is a wake up call for Marvel because what they're doing right now, it's not good. Obviously, their movies are not very good. They're not making money. Critics don't really like it. The fans are not very happy either. I've seen a lot of videos lately criticizing the latest Marvel projects. Whether it was Secret Invasion, the Marvels, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. So I'm really hoping this is a wake up call for Marvel because I'm being serious when I say this, but they need to start getting their act together because like they're very soon going to lose a huge portion of their audience if um if they keep making these because that's kind of the reason why I've started to divert myself away from Marvel films. I used to really like them back when they were making good movies, like enjoyable ones like Infinity War, Winter Soldier. That's when I actually liked them. And now that they're making these mid-level mediocre films that I'm not enjoying, yeah, that like what happened to me, which is where I distanced myself from Marvel and look more at other different genres of cinema that I enjoy. That's gonna start happening to a lot of people and a lot of Marvel's audience. Um, so, what do you think is going wrong right now at Disney Marvel? What's wrong with them?
What's going right? I think the I didn't really like that. I'm gonna hurt Marvel fans say that. Jesus. I think the I think the fundamental issue with Marvel, especially in the past three or four, even just go based on the pandemic, ever since the start of the pandemic to now, these films and properties are requiring you to do homework. And there's so much homework. I'm saying quote unquote homework, being like films and TV shows are, and like there's all these interconnected threads that you have to watch these products in order to understand a film. And the Marvels being a perfect example of that. Like you have to watch sorry, let me do this in order. You have to watch WandaVision, then you have to watch Miss Marvel, and then you have to watch Secret Invasion to understand the thread, this hypothetical thread of Nick Fury, of like why he's acting this way, and like, and I'm standing here thinking I need to digest 12 hours plus of content in order to understand something that has no narrative fluidity to it. You are, and this is what I mean. It's just it's pure capitalism at its finest. Like you're involving me to digest material that is not good to begin with, and you're putting unnecessary things in, unnecessary filler, and then I have to really understand and dissect those things in order to understand or barely understand its actual films. Like for me, that makes no sense to me, and it's a cop out. It's a cop out of your quality of, especially writing not being good. Like there's a lot of films that are supposed to release for Marvel next year that are being delayed in the next 2 years, and it's not because we're taking our time. That's what they're presenting. That's what they're insinuating. But there's a heavy amount of reshoots, and there was a good point. Who mentioned this? I think who mentioned it? Someone I was talking to about it. But if you're going into a film, then you have a half baked script, you have a half baked plan, and you're putting all this money in, $200+ million into something that's not even clear and cut, and then you make this product, and you make what you perceive to be the final cut of this product, and you watch it, you go back and watch, like, this isn't good whatsoever. Then you have to go back, put an extra 4 or 5+ months in basically rechanging everything when you could have made something solid to begin with. There's no issues necessarily with reshoots, only if they're required for the subtleties of what you're trying to present. If you're trying to change everything, then it has everything to do with your lack of organization. And I'm standing here thinking, what are these people in the higher echelons within the industry of Disney in general doing? Like I'm not a genius all over laureate with Marvel and Disney or even economics. But I want to say that if you're not even organized and you're putting all this money in, how is that even possible? Oh, you're sitting in a meeting saying these things, and for us it is insane that you're putting country GDP money. Countries don't even make the amount of money that the money that they're implementing within these projects, and there's no level of organization. It makes no sense to me. I'm not saying that every film they're going to release is great, because that is not true. Even when they were at their best, that was not true. But there was consistency, and I think they should go back to an extent of what made them good in the first place. And the reason why we liked Iron Man and love Captain America and all of these foundational characters that became the face of the Marvel franchise was because there was emotional resonance. You gave me a reason to care about them. You gave me a reason to say, shoot, this person is this, but this is what he became as a result of this. And this is how it impacted everyone. Like Iron Man, for me, and they went through a similar situation too with the Marvels, that they only had like a 100-page script, if that, and they were doing everything on the fly. But the true intention of the character was still the same. That this individual is a playboy, quote unquote philanthropist, and this particular event that happened within his life. And I'm not here to rehash the story, but it makes him go back to his senses and recognize the true importance of why he's here in the first place and what his purpose is. And Iron Man, that whole film is basically about him obtaining his purpose and him searching for that purpose. And that purpose became Iron Man. And that for me is a really intriguing and interesting narrative. But you gave it the organization, the people, the creative people, and you gave it time for it to be made. I see the Marvels, and I heard, I think it was from Variety, that the proposed budget that they released, because they've been frauding numbers that they've been showcasing Disney, that there's certain products and certain box office numbers that are actually much worse than the ones they posted. So Indiana Jones box office is actually worse, which is insane to me because the film was $300 million plus. You're saying they made even less money? And imagine the shareholders, the people that are actually putting money into this. How insane that is. It's crazy to me, and I think that's the same issue with the Marvels too. Like I know Cleo mentioned that it was his favorite film, and I'm sitting here thinking I don't know how that's even possible, but like I'm trying to understand it because I've seen a bit of it. I tried, brother. I tried. I'm like, I can't do it because I'm sitting here thinking, what is this film about? What is going on? What did this? I came out of this film thinking, I don't know, like, man, there's things that happen, there's things that people do, there's things that are trying to find their way, and that's it. Like, are you kidding me? That's it? You put $300 million+ for that. And I'm gonna go back to the Batman because I know there's a clip that you released last week, or I believe recently, regarding the Batman being better than everything that they released after Endgame, and I absolutely stand by that. And I'm not saying because it's DC, I'm not saying because it's Batman, but if you actually sit down, watch it, and subvert your expectations and actually indulge the film for what it is being a film, it is a beautiful piece of work. Because I know it's one of the few films, especially superhero films, that it gets better every single time you watch it. Every single time you watch it, there's a new thing that you find out. There's a new narrative thread. There's a new level of appreciation that you have for the craftsmanship of it. And a lot of it goes down to Matt Reeves' writing. His writing is insanely good in this film. Like the narrative in the beginning is what makes the film. If there's one singular sequence, it's that monologue. And it gets you into the psyche of who this individual is. Him being broken, but that there's a different level of brokenness to him, that he doesn't know who he is. So him being Batman is a navigational tool to discover who he is and trying to make amends of this figure that he has to paint outside of him being Batman that he absolutely dreads, by the way. And for his escape is that. And then there's things that happen afterwards. And I find that to be so cool. Regardless, it just happens to be Batman, but that narrative thread hasn't really been discussed that much because for the Dark Knight series from Nolan, which are, I will say this at the end of the time, it is insanely good. Dark Knight Rises is still a really good film. I don't care what anyone says. That is still a solid film. And Batman Begins is solid as well. But it didn't focus too much on the psychological aspects of what Batman goes through being Batman. It's more so a portrayal of those things, but him being Bruce Wayne, which is cool because that has never been showcased before, and it's a different interpretation. But Matt Reeves sat back and saying, you know what? He's a screwed up person, but let's actually delve into that and why he is who he is and why he wanted to be this individual in the first place and how difficult it is for him to do this. Because the narrative of the film is that his first couple of years being Batman. I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know how part two is going to be. After 5 years, I can't even imagine what 5 years is going to be if he's doing stuff like this. And I think it has a lot to do with, people say it's creative freedom. It has nothing to do with creative freedom and everything to do with the idea that you want to present. Because I know you have the Marvels. What else has come out? Guardians of the Galaxy 3, cool. Good film. It's a decent film. It's not great, but it's decent. It's good. It's a solid film. But that's because the characters are already fleshed out to begin with. Like they were given the time, they were given the depth for their characters to flourish the way they are. So if you actually take that out, take the characters out in the context of the film itself, it's good. It's not great, but it's good. But I'll give kudos to James Gunn. He did a great job with that franchise. That's one. And then all the other, but I can't even tell you in the top of my head any films before that are actually good. And I'm not an anomaly, by the way. And I'll argue this. I am one of many, and I know you can agree with me on this. We're one of many people that have the same opinions of this, not even franchise, but Disney as a whole. Like there was someone I was talking to, and they made a really good point that sometimes you have to let people fail for them to recognize the mistakes that they make. And that's absolutely true. Regardless of how much it can be within your control, there's certain things you just have to let go for them. They have to deal with it themselves for them to recognize the severity of the actions that they're doing, of the actions that they're presenting, whether it be onto people, their own lives, or just life in general. And it's the same situation for Disney, that seems that everything they've been doing just isn't going right. And I'm sitting here thinking, why don't you take a step back, watch the material, and say, you know what? These are the things that are not working. These are the things that were working in the past. How can we push that one step further? And if you can't, leave it alone. And I know that's a very difficult thing. I thought they should have ended Marvel in general after Endgame. Because after that, what else can you talk about? What else? X-Men? I know this is a spoil. Marvel's has been out for a while, so I'll spoil it. But the ending of the film showcases X Men. And I'm like, really? Is that when I sat here? I sat here just to see that. That really? Even the way they introduced it, like, okay, I'm scared for that. I'm scared for that, for those sets of characters. Because the original X Men films, and sure, there's a lot of inconsistencies with X Men. But Matthew Vaughn did the best job with X Men. Matthew Vaughn and I think Days of Future Past in getting into the nooks and crannies of who these individuals are. And I don't know, man. And I know I'm going on a tangent, but it's upsetting. I'm not upset about it, I'm disappointed by it. That you can make the same mistakes over and over again and not recognizing that you made it. So it's sort of the Einstein thing that you try to do the same thing over and over again, expecting the same result. You're you're delusional. Like it's insanity. And I think it's the same, and I think that goes true to Marvel because I know again like these high. Why do you need large budgets like that? Why do you need these high budgets? Like Oppenheimer costed 100 million. I know that's an unfair example. Fine, I'll even do one better. The Batman didn't cost that much to make. Batman cost like what 130, if that, if that. And I'm sitting here thinking it looks even beyond 130. And I think, but it's also the people who are involved. You have Craig Frazier, who is an absolutely fabulous cinematographer for Dune, and he also did work for The Creator, which is another underrated film. I highly recommend that. It's a cool film. You have if you have people like that are really good at what they do, and you give them the creative freedom, and you give them the power to showcase their art. Great things can come out of it. And I think for the Marvels, they're rehashing the same crew members for each of their films. As I know that recently, it's very new news that the new King Dynasty film, if they're even going to involve Kang, I don't even know what's going on with that character. Jeez Louise. But the guy who did the Loki series for season two, the decent writer, has to rewrite everything. Like, are you kidding me? Really? Like, I don't understand. You went through four different writers, if not more. I don't. It's just it's a cluster. I can't use the word unfortunately, but it's a big cluster of garbage that has been transpiring. And I know, hey man, I hope you have a conversation with Cleo about it because it'll be interesting to hear his insights because he's a big Marvel fan, and I think this is where it's been at now. Like if you're a Marvel fan, you're a diehard Marvel fan, regardless of the quality, you're gonna like it. And if that's what they're catering to, and even now that number of fandom is deteriorating every single product that they're releasing. If that is what you're trying to appease, then that's fine. That's not for me then. I came into it. I came into this franchise being intrigued on what they could do with the narratives. That for me was the biggest thing. And you had again, like you mentioned, you had Iron Man, you had the Winter Soldier, films that were narratively dense that made you actually come out of the theater saying, "Shoot, I want to be like this guy. Shoot, this guy's cool." Like, you know what? There's very few films that you watch and you come out of it and you feel as though you're that person. And I think that's incredibly empowering. And I think, sure, craziness, but after watching The Killer, like I came out of it sort of thinking like, damn, like this person thinks like that. How this person like what would he do? And like all of these things. And it's sure it sounds crazy, of course, but it's to say that it's not true, you're lying. Like I'm a huge Strong Legacy fan. I know that film gets too much hate. I would love to do a podcast talking about that because I love that film sort of navigated me for watching films in the first place and liking music because I'm a big Daft Punk fan and like they made that soundtrack. Like I have that on vinyl in my room, but they sort of navigated me through pop culture. And sure, that film is not narratively great. I'm the first one to say it. It's not. It's messy and it doesn't say too much, even though it's trying. It's presenting it being the case, but in reality, it isn't. But it looks gorgeous. It is probably one of the best looking films that I've seen. Period. And I'm not saying that to be exaggerative. I truly think that film came out in 2010. 2010, that film came out, and I'm sitting here watching the Marvels. I'm like, are you kidding me? More money, supposedly more resources, technology is supposedly better, and that is the byproduct that came as a result of that, of those things that I just mentioned and more. What does that tell you? It has everything to do with the people that are involved. and the plan because Joseph Kaczynski was a VFX artist before. So a lot of the shots that you see in Tron Legacy, he did all the planning for them. Which sure, that makes a big difference, of course. But those are the things that I'm talking about. Marvel has the money. They have all the money in the world to hire really, really good people. You can hire Roger Deakins. You can pay him 40 million plus for it. But why don't these individuals don't want to be a part of these franchises in these films? Because I'm sorry, they're disrespectful to the art form. They're not. What are they doing at the end of the day that is saying, you know what, this is good? They've It's really pushing this medium forward. And sure, I'm sounding like an old head. I'm the first one to say it. Sure. Maybe I agree too much on Scorsese's point, saying that they're theme park films, and I don't have necessarily an issue with that because they succeed within their goal. But like Marvel was great, not necessarily because of its films, it was because of the franchise itself. They made us look at franchises incredibly differently, and as a result of that, it made a great impact based on the formation of how they create narratives and all these little threads. I'm the first one to say they did a phenomenal job at that. Up until Endgame. Up until Endgame, it was great. It became both a positive and a detriment. And now they're paying the consequences for the things that they did. But I don't know, man. Like, what do you think of it? Like, would you go out of your way? Let's say the film released next year. I don't know what film's coming out next year, but like take Deadpool out because Deadpool's not affiliated with Marvel. Deadpool kind of saved their asses to be honest. But like, let's take that film out and let's say I believe Captain Marvel. What is it? Thunderbolts? Jeez, like again, it's homework. There's homework on top of the films that you need to look at. But the new Captain America film, I believe, is coming out. First World Order, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Are you really gonna go out of your way and watch it?
Hell no!
Yeah,
No
absolutely not.
way!
That's nothing
Hell
against
no.
the actual actors that are involved in it, but we're coming out of it thinking I've seen so much negativity in what they're presenting. I'm like, you're gonna have to do something. And sure, this may be silly on my end, but you're gonna have to do something really different and special for me to say, you know what? Okay, maybe they're doing something different. I'm not saying those films have to be great, but at least I can see it. I can see the change. There's certain Marvel films that came out in the beginning phase. I'm like, yeah, they're okay, but I can see where they're going with it, and they're being a bit inventive. And I know, as an example, Khalil could say, "Well, how about Doctor Strange? How about those films? How about those? They're different. They do these things. Valid. I'm the first one to say they do, but at what cost? Like, I'm coming out of these films. I'm coming out of that film thinking, like, what have I came out of it? They are theme park films. That's what they are. Even out of a theme park, I still remember some of the rides.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember these films. I'm coming out of thinking, okay, cool. Visual eye candy, okay, cool. It doesn't even look good to begin with, okay, fine. And then you have all these narratives and sort of these cool little subtleties that are going on, and that's it. I want to come out of a film having to think about it and sit on it for a couple of days and say, you know what, that is cool. Like, as an example, I know I'm diverting away from film, but like Kanye West's Donda was the same thing for me. That when it came out, it wasn't that it was heavily criticized, but it was very mixed. And I came out of it thinking, yeah, it's okay. But I sat with it for a month and a half, 2 months, really listening to it, and I'm like, damn, it is good. It is really good. Unfortunately, now it's a different case for Kanye now, but musically, but it's there's nothing wrong for a film being polarizing if it justifies itself. Because Napoleon being the same case, it's polarizing for sure. It gives zero F's given, does not care, which I respect, by the way. There's disadvantages with it, but at least I came out of it. I'm still thinking about that film. So did it succeed its goal? To an extent, it did. And I'm not saying you don't need to make a masterpiece for me to think this way. There's excellent films that I've seen that I'm like, I don't think about it in T-1 day. But that's not a detriment to them. It's just that point in time, the state that I was in, and so forth. Like for me, The Killer, for me, it's the best film of the year. In reality, is it? No. But for me, it's great because I'm still learning a lot of things even within that film. Like, damn, I didn't see that. Then was this what he was doing? Okay, that was his motivation. Why was this his motivation? And I think that for Marvel, the people that they're including within just the directors that they're involving with in their films don't have a lot of experience with narrative. Like Nia DaCosta, and people say, "Oh, it's not her fault." To extent, yes. Post production, yes. Because after post production, which is so stupid to me, Marvel's like, "Yeah, you did your job, you did your service. Thank you, bye. Here's a check. You can leave. Now it's up to us." And then you're leaving. You're coming out of that door thinking they could change everything. All the years that I put in, all the hard work. I'm talking about her perspective. All the work that I'm putting in could come to garbage because of the amount of changes that they're doing, trying to appease the thread, this narrative thread that they're doing, and that might collapse. Everything has to center around Kang. Where is Kang? What have we learned about Kang? Kang has been featured in how many things? Like a few stuff. We've gotten film, like at least a feature length film of him to an extent. And I came out of that period of time over there be Loki. Loki was barely in it, but Ant Man thinking, okay, this guy is supposed to be the most powerful guy, but he got trampled by actual ants. Really? So how am I supposed to take him seriously as to if he's supposed to be this menacing figure that everybody should be, pardon my French, shitting their pants over? It's not showing that. And sure, like they didn't anticipate the allegations, but what's been transpiring him to be the case. First one to say it. That is out of anybody's control within Disney and Marvel as a whole. But again, like you never made him interesting to begin with, and now they're coming to a point that they're forcing things. And you know this. We both play sports. And look at the back of your wall. It's a prime example of that. These championship teams, like everything that they did, everybody was coordinating in the same level playing field. Everybody was in tune. The connectivity was literally the same. So my thing is, I feel as though, because I know I've been going for too long, but I feel as though that Marvel has interesting ideas, but the people that are involved within those ideas are not the right people. And sure, like you can go after DC all you want, and sure, the Flash wasn't good. It was not good. I'm not going to justify that film. That film was not that good whatsoever. But even if you look at the Aquaman film, I don't have high hopes for that whatsoever. I'm not watching that. I'm the first one to say it. I'm not going my way to watch it. But you can't deny that visually it looks interesting. It looks good visually. Like if you're not going to give me the other stuff, you can at least give me that. You can at least give me that. I'm kind of at Marvel films, watching the Marvels, and like, okay, the story is just all over the place. Okay, I'm not going to get that. That's not going to happen. At least I'll get the visual aspect of it. And even then, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like Miss Marvel's powers are so bad. It looks so bad. I don't even. I can't even. I can't even imagine the VFX artists that were doing it. And they're smart people. They're not stupid. Like, sure, the paycheck can only go so far. I don't care how much money they're throwing at you. I mean, you can't sit here and tell me that looked good. Like even the Flash, the way they ran, like even the way he ran, like sure, like there's been heavy controversy about the way he moves and motions, but the actual running, like the first half of the film when he's trying to get coffee and like he needs to save and like him running all over the place, it looks bad. It looks like CW quality stuff looks better than that. Like CW quality is not known for they're not known for the visual aspects of their films. But again, you have the boys, a really solid show, incredibly gory, but a really solid show that visually looks good. It looks good. It looks solid, but
It'll
again,
give
like
its own.
you have the right people involved and people who are passionate about it, people who want to make something that for us audiences we come out of it thinking, "Damn, that was different and that was cool." It's solid. At the end of the day, you want to create stepping stones for the ones that are going after you to succeed. And that was what Marvel was during that period of time when you had Iron Man. Foundation was great. And then you had something that built upon it. Sure, you had a couple of lulls. That's life in general. You have a pacemaker on you, you're in the hospital. If it goes straight, what does that mean? You're dead. You're dead. You're gonna have ups and downs. And then but it's a matter of finding the median within those ups and downs, those consistencies that will enable you to be successful. And that is what Marvel was. They were able to find that medium of consistency. But again, it worked for that time. It doesn't mean it's gonna work. And there's no shame. And for some people, pride, like J. Cole said it best in this song, pride is the devil. People like it, pride. People, pride is a big thing. It is even for certain people, and I know for Marvel, it is the detriment of who they are as professionals. But so you know what, we screwed up. It did not work out. I think it's time to do a cultural reset within the organization as a whole. And then I think as a result of that, the films will be good. Like I think DC, like Superman Legacy is gonna be the make it or break it for me. Because it is the first film that is the first entry of James Gunn's universe. So like every film that James Gunn makes, the emphasis is so high. Right? Because the quality that he's created has been so high. But like that film's a make it or break it for me. Because if you're not, and I'm like I'm a big Superman fan. I'm a huge Superman fan, regardless of how narratively one dimensional he is. There's a reason as to why people still connect with him. That symbol of hope still resonates with people. What does Captain Marvel's emblem think of me? I don't get. Captain Marvel came out, Miss Marvel came out, WandaVision to an extent of that, Monica Rambeau came out. I came out of those properties thinking, okay, they have powers, okay. What else? You're not giving me a reason to go out of my way and trying to empathize with the struggles that these characters are going through. And for me, that's a big thing. Even Endgame, like, is Endgame a great film? Is it really a great film? No, it's not, but it's a good film because of the way that it's able to involve all these characters and then not oversaturating it and it having a narrative. Like there's narrative fluidity throughout, and it's paced really well, very well, and that's the big positives of it. It's basically Back to the Future. That's basically what Endgame is. Avengers Endgame is Back to the Future. Hey, Back to the Future Part Two, actually, not Part One, but Part Two. That hey, there's certain things that happen. We have to go back in time in order to resolve those things. And if we can, that's great. And at the end, things collide, and it's a happy ending at the end. But that's basically what it is. It's bona fide Back to the Future. But the thing is, they're able to create their own level of uniqueness out of it, and that is something that I respect. We're coming out of these Disney films, and I'm not gonna go. I've been going after Marvel too long, but even like diverging away from Marvel, all the Disney films that they've released thus far, like you have Elemental, not that good. Wish, haven't seen it. I'm not gonna have an opinion on that. But based on what people are saying, it's not that good. But I'll remain my judgment until I watch it. Like I have little siblings, they'll watch anything animated related. I'll watch it. I'll get my own opinion on it. I'll give it that respect because I'm not gonna make assumptions going at it. I'll go with it with a fresh lens. But all the other films, absolutely not. Like they're not good. Like they killed Indiana Jones. You know how upsetting that is for me. I grew up watching those films, and those are the reasons why I love franchises as a whole because of those films. Like The Last Crusade is such a great ending of them going off in the sunset with Sean Connery and Harrison Ford's Indiana Jones. It's great. And then they sure the recent one that Steven Spielberg did, okay, it's not that good. Fine. But even then, like there's still things that you can appreciate from it. But this, like, oh man, I think there's a big difference on you're forcing particular things in your films that sort of subverts the reason as to why people go and watch them. Like if I'm watching a Batman film, there's a level of darkness that comes with Batman. And then imagine having Batman and it's all like oh very
happy, gloomy, everything's great, everything's awesome.
Like, absolutely no way. That's not Batman. It just isn't. So you need to respect the characters that you've created. And I find as though that Marvel doesn't do that. They don't respect their characters. Because Captain Marvel, as to how one-dimensional she is as a character, there's still interesting aspects of her character. There's some very intriguing elements, but they never seem to do it because like, oh yeah, nobody cares about that. I just want to see her kicking ass. I'm like, okay, fine. Well, you have to give me a reason as to why you're going to show that in the first place. Like Iron Man was kicking ass in the first film.
But there was a reason.
There was a reason as to there was. It was interpersonal redemption. Yeah, 100%. It was interpersonal redemption for him to sort of rewrite the wrongs that he created. Because all of the things that he's fighting, he's basically fighting himself because he created this monster. Mm-hmm. This monster being the weaponry that he's created. And even the lens within his father as well. Like we get small tidbits of it throughout. But like Endgame was such a great narrative thread and showcasing his father and like that scene when he hugs him. I feel that scene hits me not because of the relationship that I have with my father, but it sort of puts you in the same perspective as Robert Downey Jr. So you're feeling almost the same things that he's feeling. And but I know I'm sorry, man, I'm talking way too long. But
Go on, bro. Go on.
I just find as though I don't think Marvel can get out of it. I may sound like a burden of bad news. I don't think they can get out of it. Not with the current set of
They've
people.
dug a really deep hole. They've
Oh,
dug a
beyond
really deep
deep.
hole.
Like, I don't think Kevin Feige. I think he's out of his domain now. But again, pride is the devil. I don't think he'll never say it.
They've dug too deep of a hole, and I don't know if they can see the light at the end of the tunnel at this point.
100%. He wants to take over Disney. He wants to take over Star Wars. I'm like, are you having a laugh? Like Star Wars is already trampled with as it is. Like, no, I don't think anybody can save Star Wars. Like, even they killed the Mandalorian. To this day, that still bothers me. Like the first two seasons were great. Even the finale of season 2 was like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. But the first 2 seasons were so good because it was so different, and they provided a different narrative lens of what that character was, and it also was unapologetic in the way they showcased it. Like, yeah, I know people go after Ryan Johnson's The Last Jedi, and is it a great film? Absolutely not. It is not. But I respect the fact that he took risks with it. And this is what I find with audiences as well. And I can take myself included as well, because I think that audiences sometimes don't know what they want. So if they want so-and-so film, so-and-so selection of a film, and then we get it, and then all of a sudden we're like, yeah, this isn't good. This is not what we wanted. When we said ourselves that is what we wanted, then I know Hollywood's sitting here thinking, what do you guys want? And I think that is very justified. Very, very justified. Like, I'm the first one to say that you make something that is creatively different from everything that we have seen. Like I know Dream Scenario recently came out. I believe it was last week. A24 film. They're doing such good stuff, but the thing is, first of all, they're not making nearly as much money as Marvel's making, but their budgets are minimal. But they're able to maximize what they have because of the people that are involved within those projects.
And it's more intriguing.
They're solid people, and the intentionality of what they're trying to do is obviously make a solid film, the best film that they can possibly make. But they also want to push it further and create a statement on the art form itself. And I think A24, for as long as we live, will be that benchmark. And I'm happy for them. That's awesome. Like there's some really there are very few A24 films that are on good period. Name me one. It's hard. It's hard. There's obviously a couple, of course, but it's hard. Like for me, like The Green Knight, for me, like it's one of the best films that they released. The entire filmography, A24, insanely good film, but it knows what it is. It knows what its niche is. It knows what their quintessential like quirks are. Being A24, like it's dark, it's very obscure, it's very weird, but it's very inventive in what they're trying to do. Like they're not recreating the wheel based on genre, but they're recreating their wheel based on narrative, which I really much respect. I know A24 now, they're navigating to IPs. And when I heard that, I'm like, are you kidding me? But they're not making that much money. So we're sitting here thinking, is that what it is now? Is all it is making money? And if that is the goal hypothetically for Marvel, and they're not even making any money, what does that tell you? That nobody cares about your material anymore. Disney used to be a family-friendly company.
Yeah.
And sure, that could be interpreted in so many different ways. And there's moments that they've gone really, really weird with their stuff, and they've been successful as a result of it. But don't go away with what made your property so good in the first place. Don't. Because there's a reason why people still remember Alice in Wonderland. There's a reason why people still remember the Sleeping Beauty, like Snow White stories. Like those stories have dated back for God knows how long, but people still remember them because the actual quality of that work was so high. And I'm sitting here thinking the new Snow White film, they're changing all these little things. Why? Why are you doing it? You're doing it to try to be modern? Why? Oppenheimer's a perfect example of that. That individual's that story of his existence has dated decades. So you're here to tell me Now you're trying to go with the sign of the times, and you think your film's going to be better as a result of that. Like even the dwarves, they're CGI'd. Why? The new Wonka film, the Oompa Loompas are CGI'd. Why? What is the reasoning behind that? There was an individual that I believe he played. I believe he was a part of the Charlie and Chocolate Factory film for Tim Burton's version, which is a really cool film. That's a really good version. But he's like, what they're doing is just it's inexcusable, and they're saying, oh, we're trying to be respectful to them, but we're not. I'm paraphrasing what he's saying. It was an interview that they did with TMZ. He's like, they're not, because you're limiting opportunities for us to really showcase our art form. You are, and I'm thinking like there's a fine line of being representative, trying to be representative, but also creating quality. If you're just pushing narratives for the sake of pushing narratives, and they're not having any purpose behind it.
It's forced.
If it's forced, then you're not really giving reasoning behind it. Why would you expect people to be captivated by it? Like there's films that have pushed narrative, they've pushed certain narrative. Like look at the Barbie film. Like the Barbie film is a perfect example of that. Like I told you, their marketing team is absolutely excellent because the way they showcase that film, it is to a good extent, it is a feminist influenced film. That's what it is at the core of it. The core of that film is that, which is absolutely fine. That's what you want to present good, but the marketing didn't do that. They never showcased it. Because of the films that have showcased that to a good extent, have not made any money. The Charlie's Angels film, the modern remake, put that at the forefront of what they did, and they made no money. But the caveat to that, and the rebuttal to that could be, it's Barbie. Barbie's basically Transformers for women, if not like 10x more so. Like for them, that is a staple within that period of time, and it's still incredibly popular.
I'd say Barbie is a bigger brand than Transformers than
bigger brand than probably anything. Like, anything. I can't even think of anything.
It's very recognizable.
Incredibly. So for them, they utilize that in order to push their other narrative, and that's smart. Hey, I'm the first one to say like they need to be studied. Like economics courses at U of T, they need to study that because it is absolute geniusness. And you see the promo for Marvel, and they did the opposite. And what transpired after that? You be the judge of that. So again, like I have no issues. I'm not here going after like, oh, there's women in the film. This I don't care. It does not make a difference. You can have loads of different things that you want to showcase. You just need to give me a reason. You need to give me a really solid reason as to why you want to do it, and it influencing your story in a really solid way, and it driving the narratives that you're pushing. If you can do that, and if you do that sufficiently, then this make a difference. That's great. Everything, everywhere, all at once. There's certain narratives that they're pushing within that film that they are pushing, whether it be the relationships with the daughter, whether it be certain elements of it. But it justifies its story. It justifies it, and it really hones in on it, and it gives it the respect and narrative fluidity it deserves. And that's why that film is solid. It's really good. So I don't know, man. Like, I think they're kind of doomed, to be honest. Like, I don't think
there's, like I said, they dug too deep of a hole, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel for them. But you know what? Maybe all these lackluster, mediocre films Marvel's been putting out, maybe it's. I hope to God it's gonna be a wake up call to them. If they can't learn from the mistakes they're making right now, yeah, that company's going down the drain.
100%, bro. I see it as this. There was an analogy I wanted to use for Napoleon, but I think it works best for this. That it's like you're given a box of chocolates. The presentation looks beautiful. It looks gorgeous. It's expensive. It looks gorgeous. When you actually digest in the chocolate itself, like the actual product that they're advertising, it's bland. There's no level of differentiation from the other things that they show. There's actually better chocolates. They're cheaper. That have better quality to them. But people get excited of the look of it. Once you actually get in the nooks and crannies of that product itself and digest it, there's nothing to it. And that, for me, is Marvel now. And Disney as a whole, that aesthetically it looks cool. It's gift wrap and all of these bells and whistles. It looks beautiful. But when you actually give it its purpose by actually indulging in the product that you're buying.
The actual consumption.
It's not good.
Yeah.
It's not that good. It is average at best, if not below it, if not worse, depending on the person. So it's, I don't know, man. Like A24 may be making Kit Kats. They be making Kit Kat style stuff. There's a reason why people go back to Kit Kats. There's a reason why people do those things. People love those things. Just because something is expensive doesn't mean it's great. And look at Beats by Dre. Like, I'm not here. Well, I'm going after everyone today. Jeez Louise. But like the Beats by Dre is like, does the quality of their stuff actually warrant the price? Absolutely not. It does not. If you're buying like Beat Studio Pros, there's like $400+ Sure, the noise canceling's solid. Sure, the look of it is great. Sure, you get the bag and get all the bells and whistles. But if you're paying that kind of money, there's better products that are less than that, if not the same. Like the Sony headphones, the same price. They're excellent. So I think people now, and I'm happy that people now are waking up and recognizing the deficiencies that these companies have. Because it's not just Marvel, by the way. We just happen to talk about them, but there are other companies that are dealing with similar, if not to an extent, worse issues. Not necessarily, but they're dealing with similar issues. Like Marvel, Disney is just they're getting killed with the stuff that they're doing. But I think Hollywood is going through an identity crisis as to what they want to present, and I think they need to wake up and smell the flowers, because if they don't try to find resolution and give the respect that these individuals who work so incredibly hard for their art deserve and what the intended purpose of this art form is, then you're going to see a lot of people not going out of their way to watch films, because there's TV shows now that are so good. I can even argue that to an extent TV shows have exceeded films. I disagree with that sentiment, and maybe that's a bit biased because I just love films and the concept of it, and just I disagree with it to an extent, but it's giving me a hard reason not to agree with them, because these TV shows are so good now. And sure, they have similar production quality, but the people that are involved within them, they're doing really good stuff. Like FX is doing great stuff with The Bear. Apple TV is doing solid stuff with Ted Lasso and other material, like in other quality of TV shows. So like Amazon, look at Amazon, man. Like Amazon with The Boys, you have Invincible. Like you have all of these really, really cool properties that are exciting people. And it's great. So if you're giving me a reason to get out of it, like the TV show's like, we're not getting like, hey man, like this is what's been going on. Like you've been missing out. Like this stuff is good. Don't even take my word for it. Take everybody else's word for it. Like I know you're watching films, but like what are they giving you that we're not doing? We're actually exceeding that. So, and I think there has been heavy competition now with TV shows being that beacon of hope for people to go out of the way and actually digest content. And especially streaming has a big part to do with it as well, because how many people are actually going out of the way and digesting films through a theatrical lens and going to theaters? Not that many people anymore, because it's an event, right? Like people have to go out of the way, you have to take time, you do all these things. Like we were so, especially the pandemic, especially just get out of your bed, put something on and watch it. And the convenience, the sheer convenience of it is something that I think films now, till the test of time, are going to forever struggle with. And I think that is an advantage that TV shows have now to begin with, but as well as quality, it's hard. It's really hard. So, yeah.
Just one more thing before we finish. Just as a summary for the audience, I wanted to get your out of 10 rating for Napoleon.
Out of 10, oh geez.
It's tough, but you know.
Like, every day it changes. I'm not even joking with it. Every day. Whenever I think of the film, I'm like, oh, okay, it's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And then certain days I'm like,
What's the one you got right now in your mind?
The one I read now, it's a 6. It's a 6 out of 10. So I think there's some really good elements with it, but it's empty. Again, it's a chocolate analogy. It looks great, but if you actually dig into it, it doesn't offer much. But I think for anybody who's just a fan of Ridley Scott, I think you should absolutely check it out, of course.
Yeah.
Someone who likes spectacle in general and wants to watch something that's new that has not. Films right now, they've been kind of slow in what they're showing. I think it's worth it. I think I don't regret watching it whatsoever. I thought it was a cool theater experience for sure. Like the film itself, fine. But it's a film that you should watch it with a large audience, because I know that we watched it with a decent amount of people,
Mhm.
and there were certain like things that happen in the film, whether it's comedic elements or it's well, especially its comedic elements. It's different. It hits different watching it with people who sort of have the same gauge and and opinions and perceptions as you, than watching it on your own. So I think in that regard, yes. But if you don't want to, it's coming out it's coming out. I was going to say Netflix. Jeez Louise, man. Netflix has me gripped tight, man. I need to be sponsored. But Apple, it's coming out on Apple TV. I believe in next month or so. Next month or two. I think there's a specific timeline that Napoleon has.
I think it's about 30 days.
Yeah, 30 to 40 days. So if you don't want to watch it, it's coming out on Apple TV. But the caveat to that is it's going to be 4 hours. So if you want to do that, that's great. If you don't, then a theater nearest you is plausible. Is it worth watching on IMAX? It's not in IMAX format, so if that bothers you, then no. But if you're someone that likes watching films, like, why not, man? Even though Ridley Scott has been so inconsistent, his films, like, whenever he makes a film, like, you go and watch it. It's worth watching. Like, same thing for David Fincher, same thing for Christopher Nolan, same thing for Martin Scorsese, same thing for, oh my God, there's so many of them. But you should. It's a good thing that you support them. I think these films, they deserve the support that they need, especially the smaller scale films like A24. Like, they've had such a big fan base.
Support A24 whenever you can. Whoever's watching this, support them. They're making great movies.
Preach, brother, preach. Because I know the Iron Claw's coming out on A24. That's something that I'm really looking forward to doing. We're definitely checking that out. But these films deserve to be supported because they're making really good stuff. And sure, they may not advertise it to the extent that Marvel or Disney has been doing, but just because it's not in your face all the time doesn't mean that it's not good.
Exactly.
And just because it is in your face all the time doesn't mean it is good. So that, I know The Bike Ride, I'm going to make a really quick point. I know The Bike Ride is by Austin Butler and Tom Hardy, got dropped by Disney. And I'm like, things are just getting lower and lower. Like, I don't know why. I don't understand it. Because it's not even bad. Like, all the I can't say that. I haven't seen it. But like, all the reviews that came out in the Telluride Film Festival, which is like a pretty big film festival besides like TIFF and Cannes and Venice, like the quintessential ones, really solid stuff. So I'm like, Disney, like, this was your chance. But again, like, they're being very stingy now because of all the money they wasted. I wonder why. But but anyways, like, but I appreciate you having me. It's a great pleasure talking about films and also discussing it and sharing different viewpoints. Sure. We don't always agree on the same stuff, but we respect each other to a good extent that we can hear it.
Yes,
hear about it. But thank you again. I appreciate it. It'll be cool hearing Khalil's perspective on what we discussed, if that's possible. If not, that's fine. That's whatever. But thanks again for having me, man.
Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first too. Be sure to support A24. They're making very good movies and they deserve that recognition. In a time where, a lot of these films that are coming out that haven't been the best, A24 is out there making great projects. You and me are 100% going to have to check out some A24 films. I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for our review of Napoleon and our discussion on Disney and film and the current status of film. So thank you guys for watching. Be sure to obviously like, subscribe, and comment. You guys know the regular business. I don't know the next film that I'm going to be watching that's coming out.
Ooh, you want to do it right now? Let's do it right now. Let's think of one. What film is coming out right now? I know Khalil did Dream Scenario. I'm like, damn, it's bastard. I actually wanted to check out that film and review. We may actually do that. We could do that. I know Saltburn came out. That's another controversial film that I think it's worth talking about. Saltburn by Emerald Fennell. What else is coming out?
Silent Night's coming out. That one is going to be solid.
That one, yes. That's the guy from the Suicide Squad, right? The guy.
I think so. It was produced by the people who did John Wick.
Okay. Well, the quality's there. I can't speak so much on Marvel in that regard, unfortunately. But that's good. What else is coming out? So Saltburn's coming out. I know The Holdovers, which was I think that won the People's Choice Award for TIFF.
Is The Holdovers also A24?
No, The Holdovers is Focus. It's Focus Pictures. They're slowly becoming A24 as well. They've been making good stuff. Mari's coming out in December. That's not far away. Mm-hmm. That might be an interesting one too. So now we're in the space where there's a lot of films that want to push for Oscars that are coming out. Like Poor Things is coming out by Yorgos Lanthimos, a very good director, a very interesting director. He's releasing a film. I know Priscilla's been out for a Sofia Coppola's film for some time.
Mhm.
Holdovers, obviously. Saltburn, obviously. The Killer, obviously. There's been a lot of edits, like a lot of like film edits on The Killer on Instagram, which is so good, man. I love it. It's the best. Just hearing the mantra every day, just music to my ears. No, I'm joking. But that. What else? What else is releasing? I'm usually good at this stuff. I think that's it. I know like the during December, like Variety and New York Times and Entertainment Daily, Entertainment Weekly, they showcase like the first photos of films that are releasing next year. So I know Robert Eggers, which is a really good director for A24, sort of kickstarted the popularity with The Witch, and he made The Lighthouse, and The Northman's a really good one too. That's another underrated film, really good film.
Very.
He's making Nosferatu, which is a really beloved story. Like I don't know how old that story's been, but he's making it. Bill Skarsgård, who played It, the Pennywise in It, is in it.
Yeah.
So that looks really interesting. So those photos released recently. I know Dune's coming out. Superman obviously is coming out. Is it coming out next year, right? Next year or 2020?
I think so.
Yeah, so Aquaman, if anybody's interested in watching that. So there's some solid stuff that's been coming out, but hopefully we get consistency and quality over quantity. And hopefully Disney can actually take notes on these studios, because there's no shame of learning from different people. So it's no shame in it. I don't know what the issue is. Why not use something that works for someone else? They're not reinventing the wheel. They're just recreating the look of it. So anyways, I hope there's brighter pastures for Disney, because I know we both grew up loving them. And I think there's films that I love dearly to this day that I still watch with my own siblings. So I think those things to me are incredibly important. And now they're giving me a reason not to do that. And I think that's saddening, because they're the same company that made The Incredibles. They're the same company that made Toy Story, the Toy Story franchise. They're the same company that made Finding Nemo, made Monsters Inc. We're not gonna talk about Monsters University, but they made some really, really good stuff from Pixar and other Disney originals as well. So I hope that they come back to their senses and really make some cool stuff, because I know that they can. I know they can. Now I'm being optimistic. I know they can. It's a matter of whether they want to do it and go back to what made them good in the first place, which is making family-oriented, mostly resonant content. So I hope that can happen. But anyways, I'm taking too much time away. Thank you again. Looking forward to the next podcast that we do together, whether it be next week or however long. But we'll definitely come back with a new film in mind in the next
100%.
couple weeks for sure. So,
Of course. Thanks y'all for watching. Take care.